So the general plan here today is to discuss what I like to call the thinking economy. And then we'll have some responses to what I present on that theme, which is to institute a credit system in the United States, which is what we've been discussing with our compatriots and non-compatriots in Washington, D.C. and around the country, is that it requires a method of thinking. It requires to actually think, which is my main point. That what you have in everybody else who's proposing, the Democrats who want to just throw money at the problem as they've been doing since 2008, and we know where they got these silly ideas. And then you have the free market crowd that just wants that they think somehow if the economy could be unshackled from all laws of government and everything can just be the sum of all the individual passions and interests and companies, then everything would work out. Both of those groups and other people who think that if we could just get rid of all government currency and have gold and as a medium of exchange, and then the market would determine that price and everything would be great. It all involves no thinking. It all involves the old laissez-faire, which is let it alone, the approach of the British East India Company and how they would get people to accept that somehow their economy would naturally grow according to the natural laws of exchange, just pure exchange of goods and nothing else guiding the economy. On the contrary, what we're talking about with here at LaRouche PAC, with the 3-point program, and people I would invite to especially watch the first 10 minutes of the last Friday broadcast by you, where you developed the credit system there in quite precisely. We're talking about something which will demand a lot of creativity and a lot of thinking by a team that has to really challenge themselves now. They've got to get their hands dirty to figure out how we're going to drive a recovery. There's no magic fix. There's no formula, and we know about these formulas that came out of the IMF. Of course, most people gave them the formulas. They knew what the austerity was going to create in Europe. But there's absolutely no formula. There's no reductionist solution, and that's what everybody wanted after the Great Crash. We proposed something different, and the people who didn't want to think, and they wanted to say, well, somehow this bailout, somehow these experts in the economy, they know how to make it work. Don't think. That was the theme. And you have these people sitting around with their textbooks of economy, and the chanting is, don't think, don't think. And so what you actually have to do is you have to go back to these people who managed the economy, like Nicholas Biddle as head of the Bank of the United States, and George Washington's group, which knew that for a nation is not made up of mechanical parts. A nation is made up of human beings that have minds, that are making discoveries. But basically, a nation is made up of laws of the people, for the people, and it's the people's credit that's at stake. Now, that system that Hamilton and Washington set up requires, and as seen by Nicholas Biddle, it requires a large amount of intention and coordination. So if we're looking now at driving a recovery with our program, which is NWAPA 21, National Drought and Flood Control System, major gear up of U.S. manufacturing, steel production, cement, all the large-scale infrastructure that's going to be involved. What we need, and when I said people need to get their hands dirty and design this thing, what we need to do is we need to forget for a second this idea of currency and all of that. You look at, we need to achieve this increase of physical production. Well, under the credit system, you can have a system where you have a national bank, and the national bank will basically create a debt for these various parties, such that it's not until the production of the goods and related to the projects are actually made that the payment for those to extinguish the debts are going to actually have to be made. Hamilton's system was to make it so that you're always extinguishing past debts based on future production. And we need to have a number of people that are going to design a system in the United States now in which all of the needed production that we're capable of, which is really the meaning of credit, right? What can we achieve physically? All of that, you can create a system based on a national bank, based on its branches, based on there's other things that we can discuss as far as how that system would be set up now. But once we wipe out the speculation, there's going to be a certain amount of debts left. And these people, we have to get a certain amount of people to get together to design how the U.S. economy, if we can understand how much physical production we have and still left, can be linked together to create this kind of future payment system. And it's been done before. It was worked very well under John Quincy Adams, but it's just illustrative to see how this insanity took over, which is some of the insanity today. So anyway, my main point is that this system was destroyed back then, and a lot of what we have today is we have a mindless group of economists that don't really want to get their hands dirty of figuring out they're going to have to manage the cycles of production. They're going to have to figure out if we want to build, we got to tie all of our current productive power to the future projects that have to be done, and you're going to have to figure out when those are going to come to maturity. What's the time span of our increase of our power? And then we're going to have to figure out, as we apply new scientific principles to that process, how is that going to increase the power of our economy? And that is all going to be reflected into what should be this credit system that we set up. So that requires a much different kind of thinking than just throwing mathematical formulas around and being panicked. So we have the capabilities to do that.
Because none of this ever makes any sense just at one given state. Right? You can't just take one state and like this whole idea of gold and silver, intrinsic value, just value defined by itself, it doesn't mean anything. The only way you can get any type of tangible, measurable scientific basis for this is saying what is the next higher level that we're trying to go to, and how are we facilitating our movement to that level. And if you ever abstract it from that continual progress, you're going to have a completely insane system.
Well, just to follow up on the point you just made, let's make it a little more precise in this way. The problem here is that we don't understand the difference between man and animal. And we don't understand it in practice because there isn't precisely scientific basis for all of this. Then the difference lies between the progress of animal life. All forms of animal life, essentially plant and animal life, proceed on the basis of progress. Now, it doesn't occur always in the individual species. It occurs in the interaction among different species. And the fact is that cooperation among species, or effective cooperation among species, determines animal progress and plant progress. The interrelationship of plants and their development and animals and their development is an integrated pattern. And it can be measurable as independent of the voluntary characteristic of human behavior. All right? So in human behavior, we have a completely different principle. In the case of the animal life, life itself, as Vanatsky presents it, is the standard on which you define what is the source of progress which mankind can exploit in the form of economic progress. But when we get to mankind, that no longer suffices. In that case, you have to take the mankind, actually based, and very few people in society understand this. Even most economists have absolutely no understanding of how the economy works. And the fact that they're economists sometimes is an embarrassment. What happens is the human being involved with creativity, human creativity. And human creativity does not occur, it cannot be explained in terms of mechanics or economics or as such or anything of that sort. It can only be understood from the standpoint of a principle of creativity, of human creativity. Now we have two kinds of creativity. We have plant and animal creativity, which is in forms of life. But human creativity is absolutely different than plant and animal life. Because plant and animal life, while it has a built-in future to it, by the very nature of the biology of the process, and when we cultivate plants and animals, we are actually, through man's intervention, are introducing a factor of creativity which does not otherwise exist in the animal or plant kingdom. And that's exactly where this whole thing comes in. When you come to political economy, or economy as such, the idea of the animal domain drops out. The plant domain drops out. Creativity is there, but it's not the kind of creativity on which the human species depends. It's human creativity, not plant or animal creativity. And the problem in economy is the lack of understanding of what the principle of human creativity is. And the big block is that every principle which is truly creative generates the future, the human future, the productive future. And therefore, it's only when you are thinking, acting on the future and in the future, that is, the future of anything exists, which presently exists, that is true human creativity. And it's the failure to recognize that when you say, let's put a lid on this, or let's go back to the worst thing you can do, possibly, to the human species, to cause its extinction even, is to impose greenism. So the green policy is actually a treason against humanity. It is a crime against nature itself, because the development of nature itself depends upon now on the intervention by human creativity. And whenever you lower the level of technology by voluntary means, that's human production, you are committing a crime against humanity. And it's the only way to understand this issue about economy is to recognize that what the greenies represent, what the reductionists represent in general, is a crime against humanity. Where does this crime come from? How come that human beings would actually create a crime against the very existence of the human species? How could that happen? Well, it's called slavery, or it's called oligarchism. That what happens is you have two classes of people in general in this whole oligarchical system. One are the slave owners, or the equivalent of slave owners. They run society, and they kill people who object to that process. Then you have the other people who are subjected to submission to the authority of the oligarch. Now they become an oligarchical species. They become the stupid people. Not stupid because they're inherently stupid, but stupid because they're subjects of a system, an oligarchical system, which is what you're getting in the United States today. That's what Wall Street represents. It's a carryover by stupid people of a stupid idea called oligarchism, called monetarism. And the idea and belief in monetarism as such is a crime. It's a crime in effect, and therefore a crime in fact. If you participate in that sort of thing, you're committing a crime against nature. The key thing here is creativity. And creativity as such has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with the money system. The idea of creativity has nothing to do with these monetary characteristics. It's a subsumed feature of natural law. And the natural law is that humanity is distinct from all other living species, because no other species but the human species and its intellectual potential can generate voluntary growth of the economy. So the growth of the economy is not a cause, it's an effect. And it's the effect of trying to bring human behavior, social behavior, into conformity with the principle of specifically human creativity. And it's those the point is that what we believe, according to today's standards, as science driver progress is a fraud, because it does not take into account the actual course and origin of human creativity, which lies in perception of the future, not current experience. And it's only when we have creative people who are disgusted by practical measures. Creative people hate this kind of thing. They hate this practical approach. When I say here practical, I get angry because I know I'm getting another flood of stupidity. It's human creativity, the power of the human being to think reality before it has happened. And only the human species has ever been capable of doing that. And that's the principle of humanity. And it's the derivation from that principle.